Hello, and welcome to the screencast on using an ABC format for planning treatment. The ABC format is a format that I like to use to evaluate how much the student has thought through what it is they will actually do in the therapeutic session around their objective. So what is the therapeutic intervention that they're going to be using? So ABC stands for three words: A, antecedent; B, behavior; C, consequence. The antecedent is the therapeutic setup that you're going to provide to increase the likelihood that you're going to get the desired behavior that you're trying to elicit from the client. It includes the stimulus prompt, but it's not just the stimulus prompt. And the stimulus prompt is, for example, a picture that you show the client, or the instruction that you give to them around the picture, like tell me what this is, or you might say follow my directions. Those are the stimulus prompts, or the direction itself, touch your nose, right? That's the stimulus prompt that says to the client it's time to respond. And that's certainly in the antecedent, but the antecedent should be much deeper than that. The antecedent is what I see most often missing in the therapeutic intervention. That is the skilled element that, if present, really could be of assistance to the client. I see a lot of stimulus response, stimulus response, stimulus response. I'll say do this, you'll do it. I'll say do it, you'll do it. There's no prep work done before the client is asked to respond, to give them some ideas about what they could do to improve their performance. It might be as simple as some of the very declarative kinds of cognitive systems, like providing priming before you interact with the client. But the whole idea of priming and that kind of technique is beyond this lecture right now on the ABC format. So that's the antecedent. Then we have the behavior. That's the thing that you're trying to get the person to do. It's often related to the verb in your objective. So you're trying to get the client to point to something. You're trying to get the patient to identify something. You're trying to get the patient to communicate to you by saying something. So the thing that the client will do is often what you've defined in your objective. It doesn't have to be, but it often is. And that's your target behavior with this antecedent. And then the consequence is what you will do if the client, A, gives you the correct answer. If they give you the correct answer, will you make the next one harder? If they give you the correct answer, will you stop and target something else? If they give you the correct answer, will you reinforce? Will you reinforce after every correct answer, or will you do it on an interval, or will you do it intermittently? What is your schedule of reinforcement? So you've thought through this whole thing, not just I'll reinforce, but how will you reinforce? Under what schedule will you reinforce? And what will that reinforcement look like? Will it be verbal? Will it be nonverbal? Will it be specific? Will it be non-specific? So think the idea is that you have thought through what this will look like. And then what will you do if the person gives you the incorrect answer? Will you make the next item easier or less complex? Will you provide a prompt or a cue to try to elicit the correct answer? Will you stop and abandon the item? Will you stop the procedure altogether and move to a completely different therapeutic set? So you'll stop working on comprehension and start working on spoken expression. So what is it that you're going to do as a consequence if this person gets this wrong? So that's the basic ABC format. I like students to write the ABC format around their objectives, right? Because their objectives are kind of driving their therapy. So what are these antecedents? What is this behavior? And what are the consequences that you are going to provide? So this is an example of a poor ABC interaction, and this is an interaction, okay? This is not the plan, okay? But this is what the interaction looks like. The clinician says, name the item on this picture, and shows the client a picture of a zipper. The client says KEPS, and the clinician says, no, it's not KEPS. Okay, next one, okay? Very poor. But why is it poor? There's no technique here, as an antecedent to help this client name the picture. There's no strategy given, there's no pre-stimulation or priming done, there's nothing done, it's just do it, okay? If the client could do it without any help, they wouldn't be in therapy, okay? So there's no antecedent here, and the clinician is reinforcing the client's error by repeating it. This person has said KEPS instead of zipper, and you've just said KEPS again. So now KEPS is running through this neurological system, first generated from within and now as an external stimuli running through the neurological system. You're reinforcing the error. You're reinforcing the incorrect response. And there's no correction strategy here. There's no correct response ever given. The client doesn't have any opportunity to learn from this mistake. So what might that plan look like? The clinician might have said, oh, I'm going to show the client some picture cards and ask them to name them. This clinician started with a phonemically complex word that's not as common as some other concrete items. So because in this interaction, all it said was that she was going to show the client picture cards and ask him to name them, she's just randomly picked a zipper. And zipper's kind of complex place to start, especially if we're talking about a person with aphasia and they need to start with something more concrete, more salient, that is phonemically easier to code, etc. So the behavior would be naming. It's not listed in this plan, but the behavior would be naming. And the consequence that might have been written down for this plan was, if correct, reinforce; if incorrect, move to next item. Okay, not very complex, not very well developed, not very skilled. The plan isn't skilled, the interaction isn't skilled, so this is not what we would want to see. So let's look at a good example of an ABC interaction. For the A, the clinician might say, we're going to work on you saying some words, and she's going to use augmented input and write the words "say words" so that we're sure that the client understands what she's saying. And in this example, this would be a person with aphasia. So we're going to work on you saying words, and then she writes "say words" to get the things you want. She maybe points to him and says "you," for him to know that it's about him. You want. Take your time and go slow. And then she writes "slow." And if you don't know the answer, ask me for help. And then she writes "help." Let's start. So she does that because she wants to try to keep the error rate of the interaction low. So if you don't know the word, ask me for help. Okay, so the strategy is to go slow and to ask for help if you need help. Let's start this, and she shows a picture of a car. And the client says "road." And the clinician says, it drives on a road, but you drive a car. And the client says "car." Good. What was that? Client says "car." One more time. Client says "car." Great. You're getting better at this. You said that this is a, client says "car." Clinician, great. You got it. Let's try a new one. So what was right about this interaction? There's a clear antecedent. The client knows what strategies to employ. This is a remediation-based ABC plan. So this is a clinician that's working on remediation, right? She's not working on any kind of compensation strategy other than to go slow, right? And this probably has the stimulation approach at its roots. She might have done some priming before she started. That's not in the plan or in the interaction, but that might have made this antecedent even better. The consequence is direct and supportive enough to get the correct response. The clinician incorporates the error, which was risky, right? She said, you drive on a road, or you drive this on a road, but this is a So it was a little risky to say road, but it was a clinician decision. She made it, and then she provides cues towards the right answers. Then the answers are reinforced in practice, first with mass practice and with a little interference. For example, the interference are the other words the clinician said, like "what was that?" or "one more time," and later with greater interference when she said things like "great, you're getting better at this. You said this was a." So that's getting longer and longer in between The last thing the person has heard is no longer car. The last thing they've heard now is you're getting better at this. You said this was a. And as the practice is starting to be distributed, she sees that it's now time to move to a new item, and we'll come back to this one probably later. So what might the ABC plan for this look like? The A might say something like, the clinician will instruct to 2 strategies, slow production and ask for help. The latter is part of a low error rate, high practice stimulation approach. Stimuli will be chosen based on the error patterns of the client, accounting for salience, word length, phonemic interference of other words. In the consequence, the plan might be written as, cues will be applied based on the error pattern of the client. Data collection will be used simultaneous with the therapy to identify what cues are effective and what cues are effective and what interference will be used to fade cues and provide adequate neurological practice. So that's the basics of the ABC plan. I hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope it will be helpful to you in the beginning of your clinical practice and as you think about and complete projects. Goodbye.